I'm going to share with you today the 16 mistakes salespeople make or people make when they're selling. You could be a head of sales, you can be a new rep, you could be experienced in sales, you could be selling for your own business, whatever. Just focus on not making these 16 mistakes and you'll definitely be able to see an improvement in your sales.
So the first one is accepting that objections are final statements. An example is when we hear the prospect say, I need more time to think about it, I need to speak to the missus, I haven't got the money for it right now. These are not final statements. And the problem is, as salespeople, when we say, okay, how long will you take to think about it? We must understand that objections are just smoke screens for uncertainty. We just need to understand that. Objections are smoke screens for uncertainty. We've been taught that we can't say, I don't trust you, I don't believe it's going to work, trust salespeople. We've been taught to be more polite, so we communicate our uncertainty with excuses, and those excuses are objections, they're not final statements. The second one is not taking your buyer on the journey. What happens is you jump on a call, you've got no idea what's going on, you haven't set any agenda for the call, you don't understand the journey and the steps you need to go on together to get the sale, to get to the yes. And what happens is the calls just become a mess and the prospect starts to lose trust in you. How you do that is, guys, before you go on the call, you just have your intention for the call and a plan for the call. They're two different things. And when you jump on the call, number 3, when you jump on the call, you set the agenda for the call. That way, you both know the direction you're moving towards and you can get them micro yeses to finally get the final yes, which is the sale. Number 3 is using the language that the buyer doesn't understand. So for example, if I asked you right now to imagine an orange elephant with a white parrot on its head and they're both dancing, swaying side to side at the same time, you could do it. But if I asked you to think about some chemistry formula where the atoms are breaking away and connecting to new atoms, you couldn't do it. That's because your brain can't connect that information. That's exactly what happens when you jump on the sales calls and you start talking about ICPs, CAC rates, retention. You start talking about all this jargon which the buyer doesn't understand. And if the language you're speaking is not understandable by the buyer, they can't connect your product or service in their future, which means they aren't going to buy. You need to speak their language so they can imagine your product or service in their world. The fourth one is pitching too early. If you jump on the call and you set the agenda like you should, and then by the second question, you notice a gap for your product or service to fill within their business, and you go into the pitch, you go into the selling, you go into the pricing, you lose the trust. So remember, digging down into the pain is going to increase the probability that you'll get the sale, not decrease. So continue to ask questions. Remember, we want to dig a mile deep and an inch wide. So the next one is pushing your agenda onto the buyer. So for example, you ask them manipulative questions for them to say the things which your questions have teed up for them to say. What this does is it just loses trust. You just want to be really inquisitive about their business. And on a side tip, just ask questions around the problems that your product or service can solve. Don't go too broad, but ask questions. Get them to uncover their problems. Don't ask questions which are manipulative because you'll lose trust. And remember, the prospect believes absolutely nothing that you say, but they believe everything that they say. So ask questions to uncover their pain. The 6th mistake is asking too many or asking closed-ended questions. Try to banish these unless you're validating the buyer or anchoring the buyer to a statement. Towards the end of the call that happens, but we really should stay away from these. So it's, for example, would you say, or do you think? These are yes or no questions. We want to move away from these. We want to ask open-ended questions, which, like I said, dig deep and uncover the pain within the business to find out what's going on. You can have command statements such as, can you walk me through? Please help me understand. Describe to me. Understand that closed-ended questions, especially when people are dealing with salespeople, it's just yes, no. You know what I mean? And then it feels like an interrogation. So we want to move away from that. So number 7 is, this is a bit of a different one, but it's not taking notes during the sales call. If I reached out to you and I said to you, listen, I want to understand about your problems and what's going on, and we jumped on a call and you started talking to me about all of the problems within your business, you're opening up, you've taken time away from your day, you're explaining to me everything which is going on, and I sit here like this. That's it, just for 30 minutes, I just sit there like that. You're going to feel more closed off. You're not going to feel as open to communicate with me because you may feel that I'm not really listening. But if you start to talk to me problems and I start to write it down, nod my head, wow, yeah, okay, I completely understand. And you can see that I'm actively listening, active taking notes. You're going to be more open. And people love talking about themselves. We all do it. People love talking about themselves, especially if the other person is listening. So guys, go get a pad for £1, $2, whatever. Get a pen, just take some key notes. Take some key notes, and that will show the prospect or the buyer that you're listening and they'll be willing to share more information with you. And that is where the sale is made, in their information, which is deep, stuck down in them. Not the surface level stuff, but the stuff which needs digging towards. So the next one is not reviewing your own sales calls, whether that's cold calling and you're reviewing the recordings, whether you're on a Zoom call reviewing the sales recording. Obviously, person to person, it's a bit like in person, it's a bit more difficult, but we can't improve if we don't know what holes we have within our game. And also, if we have a killer sales call, we close the prospect, we also want to review and see what did we do a little bit different on that call compared to what we did on the other calls. There's so many AI, screen recording, sales recording apps out there, and they're good. You can ask AI, oh, can you review my sales call? It's good, you can do it. But I always prefer and I recommend that we listen back to the sales call, we watch our body language, we watch how we answer questions, we watch how we respond. There's so much value in looking back on those calls, and that's where we get better. That's where we start to increase all of our metrics, including our income. So the next one kind of links to this one previously, and it's accepting your current ability as a salesperson. I think sales has probably got to be the industry with the biggest egos and the biggest amount of bell ends as well. There's a lot of bell ends in sales. It's an industry with a lot of fragile egos. People think they're the dog's bollocks. Anyway, I'll stop slagging off sales. If we just accept where we are today, we never get better. There's always a chance to get better. You could be a salesperson who feels like they're bad at sales, and your improvement might go from 20%, I'm talking in terms of 100% is amazing. You might go from 20% to 30% improvement. You could be a fantastic salesperson at 75%, but if you can get up to 77%, imagine the change in all of your metrics, imagine the change in your income. If you could grow at 1, 2, 3% a year, you would become fantastic in anything that you do. And sales is the same. We've got to constantly accept where we are, and we have to accept that we can always get better. And I just read this the other day, and I love it. Babe Ruth, I don't really follow baseball, but Babe Ruth, everyone knows him, absolutely legend in baseball. Yeah, he's an absolute, even if you don't know what he looks like, you've heard the name. So Babe Ruth was considered one of the greats, and he hit more home runs than anyone when he was playing back in the day, but he also hit out more strikes than anyone else. So he failed more than anyone else, but he also succeeded more than anyone else. And I think that's an amazing fact. So there's always ways to improve our sales game, guys, always. So number 10 is the mistake we make is not mirroring and introducing new words and languages into the conversations. So remember, the prospect believes absolutely nothing you say and may believe everything that they say. So for example, if a prospect tells you, I want to grow my client base by 5% in the next 12 months, and then you go back after you've heard that statement and say, why do you want to add more customers within the next 12 months? It just sounds a bit strange when you hear it back, compared to why do you want to grow your client base by 5% over the next 12 months? That's it. Just repeat the words back to them. It makes it feel smooth in their mind. It makes it feel, I don't know, maybe cognitively pleasing. I don't even know if that's a thing. And it also shows that you're listening. And remember, the buyer will be anchored to what they say. So when we get towards the end of the sale, there's different closing types, different closing ways, but we can say, Susie, I thought you wanted to grow the client base by 5% in the next 12 months. She can't disagree with that. She said it. And if it's not true, we realign to what she actually needs. So remember, guys, always mirror and use the buyer's language. Don't introduce new terms. And that also goes back to our earlier point, the fact that we want to not complicate the buyer with language and terms, industry terms, jargon, which they don't understand. Stay on their level, guys. The next one is forgetting they are human. You're talking for a webcam. I've worked at the start of my career, I was always face-to-face sales. And it is strange, but we have to remember we are still selling to a human. So don't look at your prospect like they're an AI-generated slot machine, and with enough people in front of you, you're going to pull the lever. Every time you pull the lever, eventually you're going to make a bit of money. It doesn't work like that in sales, guys. We can really distinguish ourselves into great salespeople if we look at their problems through their eyes. We understand the problem through their eyes. We understand the business on a human level. We connect. We make sure that what we're offering is what they need. Everyone's had the experience of just being seen as a dollar sign. We've been on the other end of it, and it feels horrible. It feels terrible when people just think we're a dollar sign. And that's exactly how your buyer sees you. The prospect sees themselves in the way that you treat them. So remember, sales is human interaction. Be human, connect, understand, and you'll get a lot more success. So the next one is remember. I love this quote. Remember, people hate to be sold, but we love to buy. People love to buy. Absolutely love to buy. Don't come across as a pushy salesperson, and a prospect will buy. We have to understand, especially with today's technology, we are programmed in this capitalist world to depart with our money. Advertising, mindsets, all of this social programming that we need to look and be a certain way, these are all pushing us to depart from our money and buy. And people love to buy. People love to buy stuff. That's why we live in a capitalist world. So just remember that. People hate, your prospect hates to be sold. We all hate to be sold, but we love to buy. So don't come across as pushy. Ask questions, be their advisor, help them along the way, and they'll buy. But remember, they hate to be sold. So this one's a bit of a different one, but I think this mindset is really important when it comes to sales. I recommend everyone to live way below their means And do not live paycheck to paycheck. Desperation absolutely kills sales. It kills sales, desperation. And people know when you're desperate. And the problem is, we already have a lot of pressure from the environments that we work in. Obviously, if you're a founder, you've got pressure to make the business work. If you work under a sales manager, you've got pressure from your sales manager. The sales manager has pressure from the CRO, the CEO, why they're not performing. We have all these pressures when we're in professional roles, when we're selling. To add the financial pressure of, I need to get some money this month because I've got this bill, I've got the car loan, I've just put some new Gucci loafers on the credit card. Your lifestyle choices, they create an extra realm of financial pressure. And I believe the financial pressure you feel, it comes along with you in the sales call. You're selling in an additionally pressured environment. So you've not only got pressure from your role, from your job, but you've got financial pressure where you need a sale, you need to make it work, you need to pay off your debts. And what that does is it creates a layer of stress in the sales call. It creates desperation. And desperation kills sales. So live as much as you can below your means. Have your savings set up. Have your emergency fund set up. Because not only do you understand that if the sales role doesn't work, it's okay. You can try your best, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You're not going to be on the street. But to have all of these expenses which come out, like I said, car loan, you want a new BMW, you want to wear some Gucci loafers, you want to go down the club, I don't know what people do nowadays, what people waste their money on. But just remember, guys, that is additional pressure which we don't need in the sales. So reduce our lifestyle choices, live within our means, and don't bring that additional pressure into the sales call because it's completely unnecessary. The next one is going back to objections. It's not understanding the reason for the objections. Each objection has an underlying core issue. I love this quote, and it is, a man has two reasons for doing something. The first one sounds good, and the second one is the truth. And this is so true in life, guys. A man has two reasons for doing something. The first one sounds good to other people. The second one is the underlying truth. So we must understand the objection we receive is not the underlying truth. But just get that in your mind, guys. And I feel like you'll be able to handle objections a lot better. You can be a bit more calm when they come from the buyer. The next one is answering questions directly. If a prospect has a question, we want to know what is the underlying reason for that question. Because if we answer that question, it's up to them to judge whether that's a good enough response. So, for example, they can say, how much access will I have to you one-on-one within the program? If you say, oh, you have access to us twice a week, they may say, nah, I need 4 times a week. Boom, we're at a disadvantage, and now we have to replay our position. But if you then say, how much access do you need? Or how much access are you looking for us per week? Then we can understand, we can then level with them. Oh, I need to see you 4 times a week. Okay, why do you need to see us 4 times a week? Then we can sort to understand the reason for that question, and then we're not put in the position where they are the deciding factor if what we've said is good enough, and potentially what we say could kill the deal. So we want to be like smoke. Find out the why to their questions and never answer the question directly until we know the underlying reason for that question. And the final one, guys, number 16, is accepting that the prospect knows what they want. we don't know what we don't know. The prospect may believe they have an idea of what they want, and as salespeople, it's our job to advise them on the best course of action to deal with the problems they're dealing with, which we are experts on, which we are credible people on. So don't just accept that the prospect knows what they want. Understand them, advise them, work together to look for the best course of action. And Henry Ford, he said a beautiful quote on this. And he said, if I had asked the people what they had wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So there are the 16 lessons from my own selling career, which I believe applying them, making sure that we align to them, whether you're a CRO, CEO, sales team, rep, new, old, founder-led sales, whatever you do, these are ways that we can take our sales game to the next level. So yeah, thanks very much for watching and peace.